Today I fucked up. Over the past year, I began experiencing pain. It felt like the center of my chest was on fire. Due to the burning sensation and the location, I assumed that it must be what heartburn felt like. I'm in my mid-20s now. My parents always have Tums on hand, and my best friend often complains of it, so I assumed that it was something that happened with age. I went to the store and bought some antacid chews and pills and was sure to keep them on hand. If I had something I knew could trigger it, like Chinese food, I would be sure to take some before I went to bed. At first, the chews seemed to help. If I woke up with heartburn, I would take some and sit in an upright position until the pain went away. But after a while, it began to seem like it wasn't really helping. I also noticed it tended to happen in bursts. If I had heartburn, I knew I would be more likely to have it again the next day. So I was careful with food. However, I could go months without having it at all. Last week, I woke up and felt a bit of discomfort coming on. I took a tablet and went back to sleep. I woke up an hour later in a lot of pain. I took more chews. I ate saltines. I sat in an upright position. Nothing was helping. It was bad enough that honestly I couldn't even sit still. I realized at that point that heartburn probably was not meant to hurt this much. But honestly, I wasn't really thinking at all anymore. It was becoming agony and all I wanted was the pain to stop. I thankfully actually only live a few minutes away from a hospital, so I drove myself over. It was around 5 in the morning and empty. I told them that it just hurt really bad in the center of my chest, and they got me back right away. At this point, the pain was very bad. I was rating it at an 8 out of 10. I was worried I was being dramatic, and I began throwing up. As they were tending to me, they asked, "Do you have a family history of gallbladder issues?" Oh my God. Yes. My sister had hers out a few years ago. My mum had hers out. My aunt had hers out. And my grandma on that side had hers out too. How did I not think of that? They gave me a bunch of meds, then took me to ultrasound, and yep, gallstones, and actually stones stuck in the neck that would not clear, which is why the pain wouldn't stop. A surgeon soon was in to talk to me and told me that while they can't tell for sure based on the ultrasound, it was possible I had cholecystitis. He said my gallbladder had to come out no matter what, but that possible diagnosis only increased the urgency of when. I told him I just wanted to get this over with, and a few hours later I was in my first ever surgery. It was confirmed during the surgery that I indeed had cholecystitis. I spent the night in the hospital for the very first time too. Did you know you can order chocolate shakes at 7 a.m? It's been a week now and recovery is going well. I'm happy that I'm never going to experience that horrible heartburn ever again. But I'm also kicking myself for having gallstone attacks for a year without realizing it. I won't ever ignore health issues like that ever again. TLDR. The heartburn I had been experiencing for the past year was gallstone attacks the entire time. Today I fucked up. TIFU by cleaning my windowsill braless. For context, I'm Irish and we've recently had big historic storm. There wasn't too much damage done to my home, mainly the garden and a few roof tiles off, but on the grand scale, not bad. However, I did leave a kitchen window open on a latch. The window didn't break, but it did leave a mess inside my kitchen around my window inside, the sink and the blind. My ma and da's house had the power cut, so obviously I'd invited them to stay. They said they'd be at my house in around 2 hours. My ma, God bless her wee soul, is a bit of a clean freak. So naturally, my ADHD self shot straight into hyperfocus. The ADHDers will understand this. Because of the storm, the contents of the wood chip and mud from the garden were inside my kitchen by the windowsill, all over my blinds and sink. So I chose to get right into washing inside the kitchen cupboards and the ice cube trays inside the freezer in true ADHD style. Scrub the floor, Armageddon style, where bacteria wouldn't survive. The anxiety really started to kick in, so I took some oil that I'm prescribed. 2 ml 30 mg TXE. Usually takes an hour or so to kick in. But I'd forgotten to eat, but nah, feck it. So anyway, I take a break and doom scroll and notice the time. Jesus, Mary, and the wee donkey, half an hour before my parents get here. Better finish cleaning. So I get to the windowsill, so muddy, and some plants that sat on the ledge had been blown over. These plants were all cactus, particularly a bunny ear cactus plant that I'm particularly fond of. So I moved them off the windowsill on the draining part of the sink and sorted the soil, just as the oil started to hit me. Now this is key. I was in old clothes, hair up, braless. The ladies will know this is classic deep clean attire. I start wiping the ledge, high as a fucking kite. Now this might sound like a humble brag, but I'm rather well endowed on the knocker's front. The chariots were swinging slow, and my sweet bunny ear cactus was being smothered, particularly by my right tit as I was leaning over them to clean the windowsill. The pain didn't even kick in right away. I'd cleaned the windowsill, blind, and even sprayed air freshener. It wasn't till I went to get changed and took my t-shirt off that I felt the burn of 1,000 fucking suns. When I took my top off, I'm not joking when I say it looked like the cast of Honey I Shrunk. The kids had went to war with my tits using tiny spears. It looked like tiny blonde hairs covered my right tit. It looked like my right tit was going through menopause. It was hot, red, and had tiny hairs all over. The pain really started to kick in. I turned my bathroom upside down looking for tweezers. I found them just as I heard someone walk in my door. My parents had arrived. My face was purple, tears in my eyes. My ma knew something was wrong. My dad was clueless. His first words upon seeing me and the damage from the storm was "had more wind up my arse." Charming. I had to fess up to my ma. I told her, "I've hurt my tit. There's cactus pricks all over my tit." She laughed and said, "Excuse me," so I showed her. The gasp on horror on her face, I swear you'd have thought I'd spat on my granny's grave. She starts inspecting, pulls her phone out to use the torch. Obviously she's old, so it takes her 2 business days to turn on the torch of her 2014 Samsung Galaxy. I stand at the top of my stairs with one tit out. She looks and tells me she has a solution. A microfiber cloth. Something she's seen on TikTok. Suddenly, I got a case of the giggles, in pain but fucking pissing myself at this idea. She gets the cloth, proceeds to rub it over my tit, to grab the small pricks out. It worked, excruciating, but it worked. But my ma, it doesn't stop there. We need to now cool a tit down because it looks raging red. You'd think some ice, frozen peas, or even some cooled cabbage leaves. No, not my ma. Holy water, God bless her tit. I'll give her due, she also recommended cabbage later on. The whole time my father is sat on my sofa, watching the news. He walked into my kitchen and shouts upstairs, "What the fuck have you done?" Me, just as the THC reached its peak, runs downstairs with my ma. We go into the kitchen where my da is. He's holding on to my very expensive Roman blind. With white spots all over it, I'd cleaned it with bleach while I was obviously melted on the THC, while I stood there, still braless, with my t-shirt up holding my right tit exposed. Anyway, we had a steak pie and potatoes for dinner. It was grand. My father looked at the steak pie in the eye more than I. Tell dear. I cleaned my kitchen, invited parents for dinner, got high and damaged my tit. Leaning over a cactus, which was soothed with holy water from my mother, and then proceeded to flash my father, had a nice but awkward steak pie dinner afterwards. Today I fucked up. TIFU by teaching a 4-year-old the bruh joke. Okay, so I have a manager, we'll call Linda. She is a great manager and we are really good friends, both at and outside of work. She has a granddaughter who is 4 and very silly. She's also like a sponge and will repeat absolutely everything she hears. At first I made the mistake of saying bitch in front of her, which led to her calling everyone a bitch for the next 2 hours. Yesterday, Jan 25, me and Linda worked together, and I slept over at her house and offered to babysit the kid today. While she works, since I don't work today, Jan 26. Linda has a teenage granddaughter as well, but she mostly stays in her room. Will she decided to have breakfast with us, and we all, me, the 4-year-old, and the teen had cereal together at the table, and as some teenagers do, she heard a song on her phone and did a little dance, to which I playfully responded, "Bruh," in a super monotone voice. I laughed with the teenager, and immediately after, the 4-year-old goes, "Bruh," in the same tone and also giggles. This sends me and the teenager into a cackling fit, which of course only encourages the kid to continue chanting it. TLDR, she is now saying bruh and rolling her eyes at literally every single thing. My God, what have I done? Today I fucked up. TIFU by insisting a married couple were mother and child. This happened 3 years ago, but it is, by far, the most embarrassing thing I've ever done. I went to a friend's birthday party at her home. She was more of a friend, so I didn't know her very well, and I'd never met half the people there. She has 2 children, and several of the attendees were parents who had brought their children along. 2 of her neighbors and their dog were in attendance. One was an Asian woman in her 40s, and the other was an Asian teenager. You can probably see where this story is going, but trust me, it gets worse. Both of them were pretty quiet and stayed on the outskirts of the party. I'm the same way, especially at large gatherings. The teenager had headphones on and mostly just walked around with the dog, not saying much. Pretty much what I did at most parties as a teen young adult. The woman and I ended up at the same patio table and exchanged friendly conversation with each other, as well as the other people sitting there. Before we get to the FU, I'd like to say a couple things in my defense. She had a very quiet voice. It was a loud environment. I often keep an earplug in one ear due to sensory issues. I have mild face blindness. I mentioned something about her son, and she replied, "My daughter." I couldn't make out a couple of the words clearly, but I thought she said, "She's my daughter." The woman was wearing a Protect Trans Kids t-shirt, so I thought I'd just accidentally misgendered her kid. I said something like, "Oh, I'm sorry." Well, 15 minutes later I said something about her daughter. I heard her response clearly this time. "She's not my daughter. She's my wife." The person I thought was a teenage boy was a woman in her 30s. I apologized profusely and she laughed good-naturedly. I could not look either of them in the eye for the rest of the party. I ran into them last June at Pride. Much to my embarrassment, they recognized me. Turns out I got one thing right though, as her wife was now her husband. TLDR mistakenly referred to a woman's spouse as her child. Twice. Today I fucked up. TIFU by treating the wrong thing for a year and a half. So for some context, I'm a college wrestler. I never had any issues with my skin or wrestling-related infections in high school, since we always mopped the mats before practice. Last school year I started college, and around Thanksgiving I got impetigo really bad from a teammate. This put me on edge about 1, the college mats not being cleaned as well as our high school ones were, and 2, specifically getting impetigo again. So later in the year when I got another rash on my face, I automatically assumed impetigo again. After all, impetigo is like the second most common skin infection in wrestling, just behind ringworm. So I go to the doctors, they agree it looks like impetigo, and I go on an antibiotic, clears up in about a week, and I'm good to go. Until it happens again after another week of practice. This starts a cycle of practice a week, get a rash, go on antibiotics, and be out for a week all the way until the season ends. At this point, I'm trying everything. Moisturizer, vitamins, sanitized laundry, antibacterial soap, multiple trips to the dermatologist, and mopping the mats myself. Yet I keep getting it. Yesterday was when I realized I fucked up. I was having a conversation with a teammate when he mentions mat herpes. I had heard mention of it before, but I always just assumed it was slang, like saying skin AIDS. He then informed me it's a real thing. After practice, I look it up, and sure as shit, it looks exactly what I've been getting for the last season and a half. Upon this revelation, I thought back to a conversation with my coach and another teammate. After like the fourth time this year of getting a rash, my coach told me to go on a pill as a preventative measure. He also said that a teammate was on one. I asked my teammate about it, and he tells me it's for herpes. At this point, I didn't know mat herpes existed, so I was thinking of the STD. There is no pill for impetigo, so I just didn't think about it again until now. Also, shout out to the 2 dermatologist offices that I went to, once with the rash, who didn't tell me I'm an idiot for thinking it's impetigo, especially because you guys took a swab and no culture formed. You guys were great and super helpful. TLDR, I've been sitting out of wrestling practice half the time for a season and a half thinking I have impetigo, when I actually had untreated mat herpes. Today I fucked up. TIFU went in for a job interview and asked to eat lunch in the office instead of going out. Was told that was why they weren't going to hire me. Going to try to keep this short. Looking for a job, had a recruiter hit me up about a good fit. Zoom interviewed with a company once for 2 hours. They liked me so much they flew me to their HQ to meet the team. Essentially, I was as good as hired. The flight in was rough as hell, with the person in front having their seat down and my knees getting grinded by metal while we bounced around in the air. After 4 hours we landed, and I went right to the hotel room to sleep. Woke up the next morning, went into the office and started meeting with the team. The CEO says they had a schedule laid out with me to meet the entire team and asked if there was anything they could do to accommodate me. I saw on the schedule that it said go out for lunch. My knees still hurting from the flight, I spoke up and said, "Is there any way we can do a meet and eat here in the office?" He said, "I guess," with a confused look on his face, then excused himself and exited. The CFO followed suit and left while I remained behind with a revolving door of team members coming in to talk with me. Closer to lunch, the CEO stops back in and says, "I really think you need to take the team out to lunch. It will be good for you to bond." I instantly replied, "Okay, that works for me." Went to lunch, came back, kept doing interviews. CFO comes in at the end and says, "We appreciate your time and thank you for coming in, but we are going to pass on you and look at other candidates. We already called you an Uber, which is here, please follow me." Traveled back home after spending the rest of that day at the airport. Thank God for Delta Sky Lounge red eye back, got home at 6 a.m, went to bed. Recruiter calls at 10 a.m. and says I have feedback on the interview. Apparently there was some issue about lunch and they felt offended. I explained what happened and said to the recruiter, "You were great to work with, please call me if another position comes up." TLDR went to a job interview, asked if we could eat lunch in the office, not go out. CEO took offense to the accommodation request, and the recruiter said that was why I didn't get the job. I've read all the comments so far. Best comment, I snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Reminder, this sub is today I FD up. Acknowledged at the time of posting. You can choose to dogpile, but if this makes you feel better about your day, your choices, or your situation, then it was worth it. No one is perfect, no one is 100% right all the time, and we all hopefully learn from our mistakes. P.S. Yes, I have a YT channel, not sure what that has to do with anything other than give a face to the post. Wow. This post has 6 million views and is about to hit the front page as the most toxic comment section ever. Well done. Digital cookies for everyone. Who knew Redditors were such proponents of lunch? Today I fucked up. TIFU by losing a folder containing all my IDs the day before orientation at a new job. This is a true TIFU because it literally just happened. I'm still dealing with it as I'm typing this out. I know everyone has been through the ringer the last 5 years, but me more than most. I'm not trying to trauma brag, just trying to be objective. Failed suicide attempt in 2020 that wrecked my car and left me with broken bones. Homelessness as a result of not being able to work for a while after that ordeal. I was gainfully employed for about 18 months during 2022-2023, doing pest control work, but it didn't pay very good, and I ended up quitting after a client's German Shepherd attacked me because it gave me severe PTSD flashbacks from the suicide attempt. Been unemployed since. I finally landed an opportunity through a state government-sponsored program to help people find employment. They got me linked up with and paid for a school to help me earn a commercial driving license to be a trucker. That all wrapped up about a week ago, everything in order. Earned the Class A license, have a job offer already. Orientation for the new job begins tomorrow, and as you'd expect for a trucking job, I need a whole bunch of papers on me to hand over. I need my certificates from the CDL school, my social security card, the medical documents needed to drive a Class A legally, and my temporary license. The state I'm from doesn't print your new card there at the DMV anymore as of like 30 years ago. Instead, printing a simple piece of paper, while your official license with photo, etc., all gets sent by mail on like 2 business weeks. Hence why that item isn't just a card I keep in my wallet yet. Mind you, orientation is several states away. I had a long day of travel to even get there. First flight left at 7 a.m. and I arrived around 4 p.m. Not exactly something I can easily undo by popping on home real quick. Orientation will be a week followed immediately by going on the road with a mentor driver. So I'm packed for like 2 weeks of stuff. Blanket, pillow, etc. Stuff I'll need for sleeping and living in the truck. Because of how stuffed my suitcase was, I thought, hey, I should keep my documents in a separate folder I keep directly on me in case the airline loses my suitcase. This is a terrible mistake if you have ADHD. I was mindful of my folder all day, made sure it was on me, was constantly checking for it. But all it takes is forgetting one time, which is exactly what happened. I got to the hotel the company is having me stay at and realized I didn't have it. My folder with what boils down to my entire life inside it is gone. Called the shuttle company to see if I left it on the shuttle. Left a ticket with the airline to see if I left it on the plane. Cried a lot. Hyperventilated a lot. I cannot afford to fuck up this job opportunity because I'm broke. I might be homeless again, broke. I cannot stress how much pressure is on me to succeed. Then I get a text message saying, this is the information booth at airport code. Someone has handed me a folder that has a bunch of documents with your name on it. So I called the number listed on it, and I'm texting that number to let you know I have it. Sure enough, I missed the call, so I give this gentleman a call back. He recognized all the documents inside and how important they were because he had been a trucker for 20 years himself. Before retiring from that, to work at the airport to stay close to home. He has it secured, but the problem is the airport is an hour away, and now I'm not on the company's dime. If I want to go pick it up, because I need it for tomorrow, so shipping isn't an option that works immediately for me, I was going to have to Uber there and back, which would probably be a couple $100 that I do not have. So I call my recruiter and let her know what's up and what she wants me to do about it. I gave her the numbers I had from everyone I had talked to. She says, hang on. She calls back in about 10 minutes, saying she's contacted the shuttle company and they're willing to bring it down with their next shuttle. The guy at the info desk is aware of this and will alert me when he's handed the folder over to the driver. I still have about 2 hours from the time I post this to when the shuttle will get here. When I got the news they were going to help me, I ugly cried. I genuinely thought I had fucked myself out of this job opportunity by being a forgetful bitch and somehow losing enough documentation. Someone could have stolen my entire identity several times over. The fact people were willing to be so kind and help me is making me choke up just writing about it. Sometimes people are pretty cool. I'll edit in an update once I've got my stuff back in hand. TLDR, I accidentally left a folder containing several important personal documents in it at a shuttle stop at an airport at the worst possible moment. I could be forgetful, and people are being awesome humans by helping get them back to me. Today I fucked up. TIFU by accidentally gawking at a mum who was just trying to breastfeed in peace. So this happened a while ago at the Children's Discovery Center. We were on the top floor, which didn't have much going on, just a play area for the kids and a seating area for the parents. I was casually following my boys around, keeping an eye on them, when I noticed a woman over in an alcove off to the side. She was awkwardly trying to sit on a ledge. Now, to paint the picture on the other side of the room, there were plenty of chairs for parents to sit comfortably, so I was genuinely puzzled. She looked really uncomfortable as she tried to position herself on this ledge, which was tucked away and out of view from most of the room. As I was standing there, staring at her with a puzzled expression, thinking, why are you sitting there when there are perfectly good chairs over there? And right, as I was in the middle of that thought, when it hit me, she was breastfeeding. At that exact moment, she looked up and saw me staring at her with this puzzled look on my face. Cue the wave of embarrassment. She was obviously trying to find a semi-private spot to feed her baby, and there I was, looking at her like a weirdo. From her perspective, I must have looked like the most judgmental jerk alive, when in reality, I was just confused about why she was sitting somewhere that obviously looked uncomfortable. TLDR made a lady feel uncomfortable about breastfeeding when I was just wondering about her seating choice. Today I fucked up. TIFU by staying too long in a grocery store. This just happened an hour or two ago. I've been at my job for 8 hours previous to this, talking almost the whole time, so my throat hurts. I got off work and Ubered to the ABC store to pick up a giant-ass bottle of lemon vodka and a tiny bottle of Pink Whitney's. From there I texted my wife, who was working at a restaurant right across the street. She mentioned needing stuff from a store IDK, if I can mention here, that starts with a K and ends with a Roger, but didn't have time to say what she needed. No problem, I thought. I put my alcohol, which was in a black plastic opaque bag, inside my tote bag. I tied it up so the alcohol wasn't visible and I went inside the store. I'm disabled, I walk with a cane, so I use the electric cart. I was in there for lemon drop mix, which they had none of. But I figured while waiting for my wife, I'd do mild shopping. I don't want to speak to anyone, so I put my headphones in and listened to music. I shopped and mostly just wandered around the store looking at items, occasionally putting stuff in my cart. Twice I moved to the seating area to take a sip of water from my water bottle, which I grabbed from my bag and put back in, then left the seating area. Suddenly I realize an hour and a half has passed, and while I'd gotten some responses from my wife, I hadn't gotten a lot and was waiting on a response on if it was okay to leave yet. She said yes, so I stopped by the bathroom real quick. I left my things inside my cart, including my bag, because I was only going to be in there for a minute, and no one was in that area of the store. As I come out, a plainclothes employee is jogging away from my cart. She sees me come out and says in a kind of tone that I need to check out and leave the store, because I'd been in there too long and the side I was on was closed. I assume she meant that side of self-checkout was closed. I said that was fine, and I apologized, because I was waiting for my wife to answer me on what she needed from here, and I didn't want to be here any longer than I needed to be anyways. I put my headphones back in and go to checkout, and she appears again, and her and an employee are asking all these questions about stuff I already scanned. I work retail and always make sure to scan everything and demanding to search my fucking bag in front of everyone. I pulled everything out of my bag and produced my receipt from the life water I had. I bought it from my job and said that inside the black bag was alcohol I just purchased from the ABC store. I didn't have a receipt for that, but would have pulled up my bank statement or called them or something. They demanded to look inside that too, and then was scanning the vodka bottle with their phone for some reason. They said something about someone saying I put a bottle of wine in my bag. In what world would I steal wine and not instantly leave? It really upset me. I almost cried and was trembling even though I never did anything wrong. And even still, 2 hours later, I feel awful and ashamed even though I didn't steal anything. TLDR spent too long in a grocery store, got accused of stealing and nearly escorted out. Edit changed the wording of the store and tried to clarify a bit. Today I fucked up. TIFU by trying to impress a girl and almost dying at her family dinner. So I recently started dating this girl who is, in every way, completely out of my league. She's stunning, funny, smart, and most importantly vegan. I'm talking hardcore vegan, the kind that gets memed on the internet. On our second date, she casually mentioned how she could never date someone who didn't share her values. In a panic, my brain decided the best response was to say, oh yeah, I'm vegan too. 1 month later, she invites me to her family's house for dinner. I'm swatting bullets because I know this charade is about to be put to the ultimate test. But I can't back out now without looking suspicious, so I put on my best I totally know what tofu is, face and go. Her family is so nice. Like aggressively nice. Her mom made an elaborate vegan feast, and I, being the idiot that I am, decided the best way to blend in was to eat a lot. I'm talking second and third helpings of everything to prove how much I love vegan food. Here's the problem. My carnivorous stomach is not equipped to handle that much fiber, soy, and lentils. About 20 minutes after dinner, my stomach starts making noises that sounded straight out of a cheap 70s horror movie. Her dad notices and asks if I'm okay. I try to laugh it off, but at this point I'm sweating profusely and gripping the chair for dear life. Then it hits me. I have approximately 30 seconds to find a bathroom, or this situationship is over before it even starts. I excuse myself and sprint to the bathroom, but I can't find it. I swear on God, looks like when you're vegan you can afford mansions. But I find it in the last moment, and I paint their toilet brown like a Pollock painting. Eventually, I emerge from the bathroom, visibly pale and shaken. Everyone is staring at me. Her little brother goes, dude, are you dying? The final nail in the coffin comes when her mum asks, so how long have you been vegan? And without thinking, I blurt out, oh, just a couple weeks. She narrows her eyes. Really? Because my daughter said you've been dating for a month now. I'm caught. Everyone knows it. Her dad looks like he's trying not to laugh. Her mom looks deeply disappointed, and the girl I was dating. She just shakes her head and says, why would you lie about something so stupid? I mumbled something about wanting to impress her, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. I drove home in silence, and I haven't heard from her ever since. TLDR pretended to be vegan to impress a girl, ate way too much at her family's dinner, nuked her toilet, and got caught. Now I'm single and traumatized by tofu. Today I fucked up. TIFU by playing duck noises for my new baby ducks. So how did I acquire these ducks? The pond I live behind has multiple ducks, and some neighbors have open backyards with unchlorinated pools. One of the female ducks just had babies over a week ago on someone's roof, and she got most of her babies down. Now, it is January in Florida, which means it's a lot more cold than usual, reaching lows of 32 right now and highs barely in the 50s. My mom comes into my room while I'm watching TV with my boyfriend. She tells me that when she walking her dog, Mama Duck had her babies on some guy's roof just a few houses down from us, and she left at least one that my mom can hear. My mom asked the guy if she can get one of her children on the roof to receive the duck, and the dude is like, okay, crazy lady, and sets up a ladder to get on the roof. My mom recruits me and my boyfriend to retrieve the baby duck. I hike up the ladder and find the nest of small feathers and hatched eggs, There lays a small baby duck, all fluffed up sleeping. I tell my mom I found him, and my boyfriend climbs up halfway to transport the baby down. We take the baby duck over to his next-door neighbor, who doesn't have chlorine in it, and where Mama is swimming with her babies. I go to set the baby in, and another baby swims up to me crying because it was cold. Again, I remind you, they were just born that day, it's January and probably 34 out, and this pool is freezing with no way of getting the babies out. My mom says to stop playing with the ducks because this man is getting cold and we need to leave. The next morning, my mom wakes me up at 10 a.m. and says we need to move the ducks out. If the pool and onto the lake because the babies have no way of getting out. So we get a pool net and escort the ducks out to the front yard and into our backyard lake. That night, my mom came into my room again at 11 p.m. because she could hear the babies crying from Duck Lady's house. It's our neighbor, who is also on the lakefront that used to feed the ducks every morning, and that we needed to get the babies out of their unchlorinated pool. Again, we grab our pool net, and I grab one of our cat carriers, just in case if we need to manually transport them. When we last saw the ducks, there were 14, then 10 because 4 were taken by a predator on the lake, and when we got there, 3 babies were floating in the water. I took them out and realized they died of hypothermia. This became a duck CPS case, and we needed to take these babies away from Mama because she keeps leading them into freezing pools that they can't get out of. Me and my mom collect the 7 remaining babies in the carrier and take them into my room to warm up and make a space for them. Fast forward almost a week later, I'm watching these adorable babies eat their food when I think to put some duck noises on. Big mistake. They haven't tried to get out of their playpen. The bars are wide enough for them to shimmy their way through and haven't called for their mum since the 2nd or 3rd day here. I put on a duck noises video from YouTube and they all stopped what they were doing and listened quietly until the duck on video quacked loudly. And they erupted in peeping, and one slipped through the bars, looking towards my bedroom door like they wanted to leave and find their mum. I felt so bad for playing the video and tried to calm them down when they realized Mama wasn't there. They went back into their carrier to cuddle up with their stuffies. TLDR, I acquired baby ducks from a mom duck who put them in danger. Played them a duck noise video almost a week of having them, and they started crying for their mum and trying to leave their playpen. Today I fucked up. TIFU by letting my kids watch Bluey. Obligatory not literally today disclaimer but technically over a year ago, culminating in the fuck up a couple of days ago. I know what you're thinking. How could anyone fuck up by letting their kids watch the absolutely adorable and beloved animated show about a family of Australian dogs? Please allow me to enlighten you. My wife and I have 5-year-old triplet boys. As some of you with kids can probably understand, discovering Bluey a year or so ago became a godsend when you just need a break for a few minutes. Having triplets, we probably rely on those breaks more than a lot of people would recommend. But a lot of people don't have triplets either. For those of you not that familiar with Bluey, a majority of the episodes are about some silly game unique to the Healer family. The 4th episode, Daddy Robot, is about the kids asking their dad to play Daddy Robot. Daddy Robot is where the dad basically pretends to be the robot servant for the 2 children. He does what they ask and refers to them as his master. Fast forward to a couple days ago after around a year or so of watching all the Bluey episodes multiple times. My 3 5-year-old boys were playing Daddy Robot at school amongst themselves. What were they asking Daddy Robot to do? I'll tell you what they were asking Daddy Robot to do. Being 5-year-old boys, anything to do with butts is obviously the pinnacle of comedy. So if you were trying to be silly and make your brothers laugh, why would you not ask your Daddy Robot to put their face between your butt cheeks? Now, place yourselves in the shoes of someone who works with kids, is a mandatory reporter for any kind of suspected child abuse. But you are not familiar enough with Bluey to immediately recognize the phrase Daddy Robot. Not only do you hear a 5-year-old ask another 5-year-old from the same family to put their face between their butt cheeks, but the Daddy Robot then proceeds to respond with, "Yes, master." What do you think happens next? You guessed it. Earlier in the week, a social worker, escorted by a state trooper, was in our house for 2 out of 3 hours, asking questions and checking on our living conditions. Thankfully, Bluey was playing almost the entire time. It wasn't until yesterday that my wife spoke to a detective to get the barest of details to realize they were reenacting an episode of Bluey and not, in fact, reenacting some sort of sexual master-slave dynamic from home. The investigation is still proceeding with individual interviews next month. So now I have to worry about getting arrested in a month if my kids can't explain Daddy Robot properly. TLDR encouraged my kids to watch Bluey. They played a game from Bluey that sounds like abuse is going on at home outside of context, and now being investigated by CPS as a precaution.